One of the most vivid memories of my childhood came 2 months shy of my 8th birthday. I stayed up well past my bedtime that night, July 20th, 1969. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed with my parents watching a tiny black and white TV around 11 p.m. as Neil Armstrong took that giant leap for mankind onto the surface of the moon. 4 days earlier, thousands of spectators camped out on the beaches and roads near Kennedy Space Center to watch the launch of Apollo 11. Weather was not an issue, partly cloudy skies, temperature 85, light surface winds. As the Saturn V rocket propelled the astronauts skyward, maximum winds aloft were only about 20 miles per hour, well within the safe range for launch. The trip to the moon was uneventful, though there were a few anxious moments for Armstrong and Aldrin as they tried to land on the moon in the lunar module. Armstrong had to manually pilot the last few hundred feet of descent. They touched down on the lunar surface several miles west of their intended landing site with less than a minute of fuel left. 6.5 hours later, Armstrong became the first human to set foot on another world. Those ghostly black and white images seen by an estimated 600 million people on Earth. The biggest weather-related issue of the mission came on return. Military forecasters at Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii noticed huge thunderstorms with tops to 50,000 feet forming over the patch of ocean where Apollo 11 was supposed to splash down. Now, at that time, forecasting using satellite imagery was still new, and the best cloud images came from top-secret military satellites that were being used to spy on the Soviet Union and China. But because that program was classified, the military forecasters couldn't directly tell NASA what they knew. The information had to go all the way up the chain of command to a rear admiral before it was passed to NASA, and they decided to bring the astronauts down about 250 miles from their original planned location. And just after sunrise on July 24th, 1969, they splashed down about 1,000 miles southwest of Honolulu, only 13 miles from the recovery ship. The astronauts had taken motion sickness pills before re-entry, anticipating choppy seas, and that's what they got, at least 6-foot waves that actually turned the command module over for about 10 minutes. Within an hour, the astronauts were retrieved by helicopter and immediately placed in quarantine for 3 weeks for fear they'd brought back pathogens from the moon. Today, the command module is on display at the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C., sharing the main exhibition hall with other pioneering flight vehicles, such as the Wright Flyer and Charles Lindbergh's Spirit of St. Louis. Stay tuned. The extended forecast is next.